Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Brooke and this is Pages of Blessings. I wanted to start off this video by thanking everyone who watched my first video, liked, commented, and everyone who subscribed. I have been overwhelmed by the love and support that this community has shown me, and it just confirms why I wanted to start a booktube channel. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means so much for all the support. I loved being able to talk with you all in the comments. In this video, I wanted to take some time to introduce myself a little bit more, and I wanted to go ahead and do the Meet the Booktuber tag and a little bit of the Booktube Newbie tag. I saw Chrissie at Chrissie Purple's library do a combination of these two tags and I thought it was perfect, so I'm actually taking exactly what she did here. I know that Gracefield Reads is the original creator of the Booktuber tag, so I'll link her down below, but I'll be answering some of those questions in this video. So to start off, again, my name is Brooke. I live in Michigan with my husband and son. My husband and I have been married for 4 years, together for 6.5 years, which is crazy. Doesn't seem like it's been that long. But we just celebrated our 4th marriage anniversary in October. We have a son who will be 2 in February, and I am also 25 weeks pregnant with a baby girl who is also due in February. So we'll have 2 February babies. And I'm a stay-at-home mom. I love taking care of my family. And you'll probably, because I am a mom, I do plan to do a few videos on what books my son is enjoying, some recommendations for beginner books, baby books. There is a lot of resources, a lot of videos that I've seen moms do for readers and even picture books, but for that in-between stage when they're not quite ready to sit still for a picture book, but you want to start introducing books right away, I plan on sharing what I did with my son, and he loves reading. He will bring me book after book after book, and he will even sit and look through his books all by himself for 10 to 20 minutes. So I will share what I did with him and what I will be doing with our daughter. Let's get into the tag. All right, so I have my computer down here just so I stay on track with the questions. I'll put the questions in the description box below. But the first question is, how did you find out what genre you like and what to read? I think this is pretty similar to everyone's answers that I've seen so far, but pretty much trial and error. I am not afraid to try really any genre. I do have some, I don't want to call them standards, but some stipulations. I like clean romance, closed door romance. I don't really care for anything past kissing in books. I don't think it's needed in a book. I don't enjoy reading that, so I prefer to skip over that. Now, if there's I will say there have been a few books that I've read, and I will get into this in my October reading wrap up later, that there's sexual assault, and I don't quite mind that as much because it's imperative to the storyline. But when it feels like it's just thrown in a romance, it just doesn't seem necessary to me. But other than that, I would, in strong language. So also don't really care for strong language, but other than that, I would pretty much try any genre. I have loved Booktube for this very reason. I have watched many book review videos, reading recaps, my top, this genre, my top that genre, trying to figure out what I like, and by listening to people's reviews and then going and reading those books and then deciding if I like them or not, I'm better suited to then go forward and see what books I would like. Okay, sorry, I don't know if you can hear. My cat will not leave me alone. This is Indy. She's our little fur ball, but she is just rubbing up against me and purring, so she might be joining us for this video. Okay, next question. What author is most like me? This is a little bit tricky because I don't know like their personalities or anything, so I'm just going to base it off of their books that they write, and my answer would be either Terry Blackstock or Colleen Coble, only because they write Christian fiction. There's always a faith element, but also they write a variety. One of my favorite Christmas books is Catching Christmas. That's by Terry Blackstock, but I also love her thriller books, specifically the If I Run series. Colleen Coble also dabbles in quite a few different genres. They're all Christian books, but thriller, historical. I know she has a couple westerns. So I like that I think that's kind of describes me. I like a little bit of everything. I'm not a one genre type of reader. If I was stranded on an island or a farm, What books would I take? So a lot of these questions, I realize the answer could be the Bible. So if we're just not going to include the Bible as part of this tag, I would assume that would be my number one choice. But now I've heard a couple people answer this differently. They've answered it books or book. So if it's just one book or books, I would say the first choice would be The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but specifically the entire series of the Chronicles of Narnia. There's a bind-up that I have checked out from my library and has all of the books in one. So if I could cheat and pick that, I would do that one. If I can't cheat, if I'm not answering this correctly, then my other choice would be A Little Woman, which getting this back out makes me want to read it again. I haven't read it in a few years, and so I'm thinking this winter might be the perfect time to reread this one. Next question, so question 4. Do you buy books to read them or because they are beautiful to go on your shelf? Yes and yes. Most of the time I'm buying books because I want to read them, or I've read them and they're a favorite and so I want to own it. Or like classics and they have a beautiful cover, I will buy them to look pretty on my shelf. So a little bit of both. Question 5. What book could you have read 10 years ago that would have changed your life? Again, not including the Bible. I would go with Corrie ten Boom's A Hiding Place. I read this a year and a half, 2 years ago for the first time. It became one of my all-time favorites. The faith content in here from her family, specifically the sovereignty of God and how he protected his word in the concentration camp. I don't want to give too much away, but there was just this thread of like, that shouldn't have happened. Just like things that were coincidence or, something happened at the perfect time that allowed for something to be kept secret. It makes me want to read it again. It was powerful, sad, very sad story, but ultimately such a testimony to their Corrie's faith and her family's faith and their perseverance to spread the gospel even in the midst of unbearable and unthinkable circumstances. So if you've not checked out Corrie ten Boom's The Hiding Place, add it to your list, add it to your Amazon cart, go buy it. Moving on. There are only 3 books in the world. What would they be? Or 3 genres? I went with genres because I don't think I could pick 3 books. I think I don't really feel like there should just be 3 books in the world. I read because I like getting different ideas and learning different things and seeing things through different people's perspectives. So limiting it to 3 seems a little hard. So I'm going to do 3 genres, which would be Christian or biblical fiction, historical fiction, and mystery/thrillers. So I know I'm like kind of combining a bunch, but those are like my main 3 that I love. And you can kind of put romance within the Christian fiction and historical fiction because there's always a little bit of romance in those books usually. I'm not like a straight romance reader, but I do like an underlying romance. If you could write a book about anything, what would you write about? To sum up what kind of book I would write, I would put a picture of it right here, but it's Love and a Little White Lie by Tammy L. Green. That is essentially what I would write. There's a little bit of love. There's a coming to faith story. Friends to lovers. That book had me in tears only because it resonated with me as my own story. Not the specific situations, but the fact that the main character was coming to faith and met a love interest, but there was a friends to lovers. That's essentially my story. I came to faith. We're about 3 months after I met my husband, but we were friends, and so I was a newer Christian, and we started dating, and then obviously we got married after I came to faith. And so he's a huge part of my testimony. So that just really resonated me in that book. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, I would definitely check out that series. I'm dying to read the second one. I haven't moved on in that series yet. I've only read the first one, but it was like a 4 or 4.5 star read for me. Next question. What character do you feel is most like you? This one was also difficult because I don't necessarily know if I read anything recently that I would say like, oh, that's me, and I kind of like that. I like reading different, like I've said before, like different perspectives, like where it's not something I just like automatically resonate with. But thinking about it, I my answer would be Mary Ingalls from the Little House on the Prairie series. She's the oldest. I'm the oldest in my family, oldest out of all my siblings and cousins. So that being, you know, the firstborn, we have that going for us. Studious, loving to read, kind of putting school first. Also was me growing up, but she's also really caring and looks after her sibling. What's funny is when I would read the Little House series, I would want to be Laura, but I know deep down I'm not a Laura, I'm a Mary. How do you plan out your booktube content? Well, this is only my second video, so I haven't quite figured it out. Right now I just have a notebook and I jot down ideas when I have them, and I don't have a schedule. Maybe eventually I will get a schedule, but I don't want this become a chore or feel like this is something I have to do. I want to do this because I enjoy it and want to do it. So there's not really going to be a schedule when I have the time. I am a mom, I am pregnant, so that kind of plays into my posting schedule. But for the most part, I'm planning to do maybe once a week. We'll see. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself, but that's what I think I'm able to do right now. If you were, I believe this is my last one for the Meet the Booktuber tag. If you were dying, what book would you want the world to read? Since I already said Hiding Place and I don't want to answer the same book, I'm going to go with None Like Him. This is by Jen Wilkin. This is a book that goes over all the ways in which we are not like God. So even she has a second companion book called In His Image, and that's all the ways we are like God or created like God with characteristics like him. But this isn't all the ways that we are not like God. God is infinite. We are not. God is self-existent. We are not. He's eternal. We are not. So it just goes over all of the characteristics, how God is, and then how when we try to be like that or we think we are that way, how we end up unhappy, unsatisfied, living with no peace, maybe having anxiety because we want to be like God. We try to think we are. We put other people up on a pedestal thinking that they're like God when they're not. So this was, I think, huge. If I would have read this as I guess I would have been 17-year-old going, getting ready to go to college, this I think would have really helped clear up a lot of lies I believed about myself and God. So I really recommend Jen Wilkin, but all specifically this book. And I know people have great things to say about the companion in His Image. That's it for the Meet the Booktuber tag. We're going to move into the questions for the Booktube Newbie tag. Now these are not all of the questions. I just am doing the same questions that Chrissie from Chrissie's Purple Library did. So it's just a few more to try to get to know me and my book tastes a little bit better. The first question I have is, why do I love reading? I love reading for the experience, from going into a library, the feeling a book, like feeling a book in your hands, the way the cover is, the pages, the smell, whole sensory experience of getting a book. I love sitting down, and I would prefer to read a book than watch a movie. I just think it's way more engaging. I was like up on my knees reading a book last night because I was just so enthralled in the story, and the more I am, the faster I read. I love that. I love being just engrossed in a book. And what I've said before, just learning, seeing different perspectives, learning about times in which I wasn't alive to experience, and just being able to read about situations and events that I may never experience, but getting to understand the emotions behind it and being able to sympathize with the person. I think you can grow in your character and just who you are through reading. So really the answer is everything. I love everything about reading. What series or books got me into reading? So I have quite a few answers for this. So I recently found this at a free little library and I had to get it. It's one of the Cam Jansen books. They're mystery books. Pretty sure they're all mysteries. And I remember checking every single one out of my elementary library and reading them. They're pretty much beginner readers. There's pictures, but just even like feeling how this feels, like it brings me back to my childhood, and just the illustrations. So they're not, super long books. Definitely beginner readers, but I would say this series because I devoured it. as well as like the Ramona series. Also devoured that. Ginny B. Jones, Magic Tree House, all of those. And then in 5th grade, I was asked to be part of a book bowl team. If you know what book bowl is, please comment below, because I don't know if it's just like a Michigan thing or it was just like my school district. I mean, it was more than just my school district, but like maybe it was just my area. But anyways, we read 10 books within like, I think it was like from like Halloween to Christmas. It was a very short time. And then we went as a team and we competed against other teams in trivia about the books. So it was essentially like a quiz bowl, but with books. And one of those books that I had to read, well, there's 2. I have 1 copy with me, but The City of Ember. And this is a dystopian science fiction type of book, I believe. So essentially there was I think that might be a spoiler, so I'm not going to say. But essentially there is a city underground and they're running out of energy. And the main character is trying to figure out how to save the city, is what I remember without giving spoilers. Loved this book. There's a sequel. There might be another one. I've only read those 2. So if there's any more in the series, I haven't read them. I'm not aware. Love this book. I've read it multiple times. Not recently, obviously, because I'm having a hard time remembering what's a spoiler and what's not. But my other book, which I don't own, I used to. I don't know what happened to it. Might be at my parents' somewhere. But it's Fever 1793, which is historical fiction following Yellow Fever, Scarlet Fever? Yellow Fever, I think. And I read that multiple times just in 5th grade alone. Bawled my eyes out both times. I remember reading it with my mom, but it ignited, I think, my love for historical fiction. So I wanted to include that. And then I feel like I kind of lost my love for reading in high school, even though I was reading really great classics and like To Kill a Mockingbird and Great Expectations. It was always like you had to annotate. You couldn't just read for enjoyment. There was always like this pressure to find like writing themes and extrapolate so much from the book that to me it just took a lot of what I loved about reading out. So it wasn't until the end of my high school years, there was a snowstorm, ice storm, and we lost power, and my dad took us to Sam's Club to get a generator, and I found this in their book section, Divergent, read the back, and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Binge read it in one night. So, I mean, I had nothing else to do, right? I was kind of forced to read because we had no power, and I devoured the series as they came out. So I would say this kind of ignited my love for reading from like young adulthood on. What are some challenges you think starting a booktube channel are the hardest to overcome? I would say being outside my comfort zone, listening to myself talk, seeing my mannerisms and stuff when I'm editing, that's a little difficult. But then also just like staying true for me and not feeling pressured to read a specific type of book or feeling like I have to because I'm labeling myself as like a Christian booktuber that I have to, that my booktube has to look exactly like the other Christian booktubers. I think we all have different tastes within that realm, and that's okay. And that's why I'm here, is that I don't want to be just like someone else's channel. I want to be myself and true to me. And so I think that's a little bit hard when you're faced with just in the age of social media and age of comparison. It's easy to feel like you need to be fit in a certain box. Again, did I start reading? Pretty much whenever this age was, right? So I don't know, kindergarten, 1st grade, whenever I was capable of reading books like this, that's when I started reading. Where do I read? Anywhere, but predominantly the couch or my bed. I am a car reader. I know some people get sick reading in the car, but my husband always drives and we're together, and that allows me to be able to read. I also listen to a lot of audiobooks when I'm cleaning and during my son's naps while I'm getting stuff done around the house. I believe this might be the last one. What kinds of books do I like to read? I've said this quite a few times in this video, but a little bit of everything. I will try anything once. I just finished a science fiction, sci-fi book. Loved it. 5 stars. Can't wait to go over it. And my reading wrap up for October. But that's not the norm, but I'm willing to like try those genres, try fantasy, but predominantly I will read historical fiction, Christian fiction, and thrillers. I went through a huge thriller phase at the beginning of this year. And really low risk thrillers, I would say. Like they're not too scary or like too realistic. I kind of like the unrealistic thrillers where you're like, this really probably wouldn't happen in real life, but what if it did? And then I like thinking about what I would do in the main character's shoes, but not too real where it's kind of like eerie. I think that wraps up all of the questions. Hopefully I didn't miss anything as I'm scrolling on the laptop, but thanks again for stopping by and sticking with me through the length of this video. If you made it this far, put a book stack with a Christmas tree emojis in the comments below so I know that you made it to the end of the video, specifically because I'm really excited for Christmas. When this goes live, it will be November 1st, and I'm trying to convince my husband that it's okay to decorate for Christmas, but it took him way too long to be convinced that I could decorate before Thanksgiving, like the week of Thanksgiving last year. So I think that's a losing battle, but if it was up to me, I would decorate for Christmas November 1st every single year and listen to Christmas music and start watching all the Christmas movies. But thanks again for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.